So, segment 3 this week, Anthony. Our unique segment.
I love how we still call it
It's
segment
always
three,
going to
you
be
know.
segment 3. Except
Boffin.
for when we had segment 4
They
because we
always
were mad one week. But um, as we did last week, we had a segment on Edge, and we thought, well, love is in the air. Valentine's Day has just been and gone, and so we thought it would be only right to declare our love for the Olympic gold medalist himself, the one and only Kurt Angle. And so we thought for this segment, we would come together and just talk about all the reasons why we love He's Just a Sexy Kurt himself, Kurt Angle. Um, so, I mean, you might say.
I think it is it's one we've always he seems to be someone we
Mhm.
regularly reference, and it's interesting, and we will talk quite a lot about Kurt in this segment, but what I find the most interesting is like, and I don't know if you agree with this, Carl, but straight out the gate I'll say I find that I appreciate him more
Mm.
now I'm older. Does that make any sense? Like, I look back at stuff that I watched as a kid that Kurt was so pivotal in, like storyline wise and so on like that. And I probably didn't appreciate the work he was putting in
Mm.
then. But I look back now and you just realise how much of a fucking good worker he was. Do you know what I mean? And I don't know if you felt the same
So,
way,
yes,
but like it's interesting
yes
how
and
like
no. So for me, I always loved him. I
okay,
thought he was fantastic, and he was proper over for me. I thought he was brilliant. But now looking back on the career he's had, the way he's not only got himself over, but has got so many other people over and like dragged other people up with him. Like the list of people that he's worked with and has just
yeah.
made look infinitely better is something that completely I
I think
missed.
that's the thing, isn't it? Like that's probably the element that you
Mm.
appreciate when you get older is the way he's helped other people, because you can like certain elements that we're going to talk about, like certain comedy elements especially, like you remember that and you go, he
Hmm.
was fucking funny then, but like you say, working with certain people and helping them get their push, like that's something you can only, I think, only truly appreciate through hindsight, maybe. You know what I mean? I didn't really appreciate that at the time, but I look at it now and I go, he was a fucking excellent worker on top
Oh,
of everything
definitely.
else,
And I
to be
think
fair.
to get into the main event picture when you had the likes of Stone Cold and The Rock there and Triple H, and to come in with not many years in the business at all, and so quickly kind of catapult yourself into that main event picture and not look out of place. He's definitely an absolute fucking legend. But
Yeah,
I think,
he's one of them characters as well. Like the way you put that across, it gets me thinking, because like there's so many hits and misses in WWE or wrestling as a whole where like they'll come from a different background and they'll either fucking take to it or they won't. Now you might argue Kurt came from a similar background, but he was Olympic
mhm.
wrestler, so he understood the fundamentals of wrestling. But this is a totally different ball game. So like he could have done exactly what your pro footballers have done, and he could come into the business and not have took to it, because there's loads of elements about like the character work and the mic skills and all that that he could have just been shit at for all
Yeah.
they knew. Do you know what I mean? So it is a real testament to him how, like, even though he understood wrestling, you can't knock him for how well he took to the business and how quick he took to
It
that as well.
honestly baffled me how much charisma he had, because you talk about like the types of people who come to WWE, and they're like they're weightlifters, they are ex pro football players, they are athletes of all different walks of life, and you've got someone like Kurt Angle who is a Olympic gold medal wrestler, but you would never expect him to just from a charisma standpoint be one of the best in the whole business that has ever been. Um,
Yeah,
like
couldn't agree
it is
more.
literally insane. But I think the way that we should do this is like similar to what we did with Edge. If we do chronologically and we start with
Yep.
his debut. So one of the reasons, Anthony,
Yeah. Get your
getting your
chronograph out,
chronograph
Carl.
out, one of the reasons I love Kurt is just the way they brought him in. So I think they've tried to do this with Mark Henry in the past, and it's like if you kind of bring
Mm.
someone in and as like an all American and like try and push them as a baby face and all that kind of stuff. And the way they brought Kurt in was excellent because he was an American hero. He won gold at the Olympics. But they didn't go, oh well, everyone's
With a
with a
broken
broken
freaking neck,
freaking
I
neck. I
believe.
mean, that alone, that fucking, how can you not love Kurt Angle? But he comes in, and they made him this arrogant, well, I'm a gold medalist and you're all just a bunch of nobodies kind of thing. And straight off the bat, it was just perfect. Like, if you know, how many people have you seen? Think back to The Rock. He
Yeah.
brought him in as Rocky Maivia, and it was like trying to push him, and everyone's like, "Die, Rocky, die!" And he had to go heel with all these other different ways before he ended up coming back to babyface. But Kurt just came in and was just so hated and despised because you couldn't argue.
Yeah. To be honest, like it's a fair point. I struggle to think of people who hit the mark straight out of the gate like that. In all fairness, like you say, like even when they've tried to do that exact thing of like the All American hero kind of shtick, even like admittedly it worked a lot better with Kurt for being a heel run, like you say, but like I don't know. I'm honestly trying to think of one now who's had like a debut that's worked that well, and they haven't sort of modified the character all too much. Because, like you say, even The Rock was Rocky Maivia starting out, you know. So it's again another testament to him. But the story wrote itself. They'd have been daft not to lean into it. You know what I mean? Like you say, it was right there. He was an Olympic gold medalist for wrestling. Like he could have easily been the type of person who'd look down on what they do. You know, so to come in with that character is just
Well, that's it. I think it felt so refreshing
idea.
because you know how many times have we seen them go the opposite way and go, oh well, you know, people will definitely cheer for him because of X Y Z. Like look at you know, fucking like Lex Luger and stuff like that. Like what a flop they were because he just didn't have any personality or
that whole plan. He was going to be the new
well, exactly,
Hogan, wasn't he, Luger?
and it didn't work at all, did it? And then obviously with Angle, you've got two ways you could have played it, and for once, I think they played it perfectly. And you know, he came in, he had his catchphrase already. He had the three I's: intensity, integrity, and intelligence. And it was just he was such a dick, and it was so good. You know what I mean? Like everybody, you'd love to hate the guy. And I don't know, just he was just a fantastic debut. And what you know, the first of what we've already kind of alluded to, the amount of people he worked with and helped elevate. You know, he started on like an undefeated streak, which as you would expect because Kurt Angle, he's a fucking gold medalist. And, you know, when Taz debuted, he went up against Kurt Angle and handed him his first loss. He put him in the Taz mission, choked him out, and straight away you've just elevated Taz to everybody because, you know, this guy has made a debut and initially straight away broken his streak.
And do you know what, that like you can see in modern day product that is a really tough thing to have where like Kurt can take a loss, but it's that way. Like Kurt doesn't really lose from it because he's still a badass and he's still tough to beat. So it helps elevate Taz. Like, you know what I mean? Like the WWE, they really struggle to strike a balance these days of going, well, we'll hand them losses and then it kind of weakens them. But like you say, we had that undefeated run. We know he's a tough bastard. So when Taz come in and did that, what did it do? It made you think, fucking Taz is like, because he was not the tallest guy in the world. And that was kind of the point, wasn't it? But like you say, you locked in that submission and you knew that was a devastating submission. And this is a guy to watch. Perfectly executed.
So straight away, he's putting people over already. And then, as you said, it didn't hurt his career at all. He put Taz over, and then just went on a fantastic, streak. Then off the back of that as well, became, I always remember him as the Eurocontinental champion. The European Championship. I fucking love that European belt. I miss it so much. And it was back when the IC title still meant something. So the fact that he was there and able to hold both of them belts at the same time, and just like two belts, his gold medals, and he was just fucking. He looked like the dog's bollocks, didn't he? Like, this guy is legit. He's got two belts. Yeah. He's a gold medalist. And then, like, one of the best matches from that time, that era as well, is the triple threat match that he had. So it was him, Jericho, and Benoit, and both of his titles were on the line in this triple threat match. And he lost both of them and didn't get pinned once. And it was fantastic because obviously Benoit pinned Jericho, Jericho pinned Benoit, and his character work and the way he handled it off the back of it, it was just so good. I remember that just being one of probably my match of the year for the year that happened as well. So just so good, so good.
Yeah. And I love the fact that despite holding two belts, no one called him Katie Two Belts at any point.
Well, it was a different time. You didn't have Michael Cole on the fucking commentary saying the same fucking, catchphrase over and over again to try and make it marketable. But yeah, he was so good to come in and straight away, like getting the belts and stuff, that made sense. He was legitimate. He, had improved in the ring. He was fantastic at this point. He's also had the whole legitimacy of being an Olympic gold medalist. So straight away he had that as well. But he was also starting to dip his toe in the water of like other angles, pun intended, at this point. And one that I thought was another fantastic angle. So, how many times have we seen soap opera angles in WWE just be so awful? Like, look at the Mysterio
Oh,
stuff recently. With what's his face Murphy and Aaliyah. So like all that
I
kind of
know. Look at what they've done with it since. Like, we don't know where
well,
to go with
exactly,
this now.
absolutely fuck all. And you know, for him, Triple H and Stephanie deserve a massive amount of credit because they took a soap opera storyline and made it fucking, entertaining. And, there was a bit there where, Stephanie and Triple H were arguing a little bit and like Stephanie got injured, Kurt carried her back to the into the back kind of thing, and then she kind of woke up and they ended up kissing and it was like a cliffhanger. But as a wrestling fan, you'd be like, oh god, like today if that happened and it was a cliffhanger with fucking Buddy Murphy and Aaliyah, you'd be like, oh my god. But this, you would like, oh my god, and it meant something. And the fact that he was able to do that,
It's crazy how that works, isn't it? Because like you say, you genuinely like invested in
well,
it,
exactly.
and I don't know how they did it because it is still cheesy, daft soap opera type storylines. But yeah, the ad was much more invested, and maybe it's because before they got into all that, like they built up so much love for the likes of Triple H and for the likes of Kurt. It's probably at the time not so much Steph because I think she wasn't playing a likable character, but you know what I mean. Like, it is interesting, like how they got us that invested that we're sat here with this soap opera storyline going, oh god, poor Triple H.
And that's the one and only time anyone has ever thought
Assuming you
that
like
about
Triple
Triple
H,
H.
Adam.
But no, it was just it.
I don't know. Some people love him even if he's a
No,
bad guy.
I was always a mark for
Anyway,
Triple
sorry, go
H. But no, I just think, yeah, it was so refreshing. He was able to do that, and obviously, fair play to, Trips and Steph as well, for making it work so well. But it wasn't the only McMahon that he worked with, was it, Anthony? A match that you talk about quite frequently.
I do talk about quite frequently because it points out not only the work from Kurt, but like the Shane being just an absolute fucking lunatic. Like, fair play to him. He's been willing to put his body on the line so much. And this isn't a segment about Shane, so I won't talk about him too much. But let's talk about their match at King of the Ring. Now, these matches get so many different titles, that I couldn't. I basically falls counted anywhere. I think was it an ODQ, whatever you want to call it at that time. But they could fight anywhere they fucking wanted. That was kind of the point. And let's start by saying, Kurt, like Shane isn't a wrestler, right? And I feel bad even saying that at this point when he's done like almost decades worth of wrestling. And I still go, he's not a wrestler. But Shane, especially at this point, wasn't a wrestler, right? And obviously, we had the reliance on Kurt to help put this over. But my God, they're both willing to punish each other here. Like they put their bodies on the line together with this, and that and the reason it gets mentioned a lot, but that's shot through the I don't. It was proper glass. Actually, I was going to say
No, it
plexiglass,
was
but it might
glass.
have
Yeah,
been
it's
proper
shattered.
glass. I don't know, but it was the wrong fucking glass anyway, and it did not break. Should have broke. Did not break. And what did he do, Carl?
Yeah,
Keep going until it breaks. That's the
and not
fucking
just
thing to
not just
do.
through one, through
Badasses.
two of the
Pair of
fuckers.
them. Not just one.
I mean,
And that's just absolute punishment. It's probably like this was me getting into wrestling as well, bear in mind. So like this is me getting to know Kurt and Shane, and what a fucking match this is. Like I will go back and watch this match
it
now.
is
It's fucking
honestly
insane.
unbelievable. I think I have watched it back like once or twice since. It's just it is mental. And just to think again, it's another example of Kurt just taking somebody and managing to get a fucking memorable, crazy match. And I'm not disrespecting Taz here because was fantastic as well. But when I think of Taz matches, not many of them jump out at me as like, oh, this was awesome. Do I remember him fucking beating Kurt Angle? Yes, I absolutely do. Shane McMahon,
Yeah.
you think back to his matches, I remember him doing that fall from fucking God knows where. I think it was against the Big Show, maybe. I can't even remember that match that well.
See, that's the funny thing with that fall.
Yeah.
You remember the
You remember
fall.
the fall.
You don't remember
I
the
honestly don't
match.
remember who. I think it was the Big Show, and I think Test was there at some point in Shane's corner, maybe. But I could be wrong. Whereas when you think of Shane McMahon matches, you remember Shane and Kurt, and you remember this match.
Yeah.
So
You remember
Jesus,
the match,
so
yeah, exactly.
absolutely.
Yeah. And yeah, it always goes down as one of my favourite Kurt matches and probably my only favourite Shane match in all fairness. But yeah, it definitely needs a mention at this point because this is was he even a heel at this point? I don't even know where he was at this point because we were authority figure loaded, weren't we? So maybe Sheamus being the bad guy. Those sort of elements. Just watch the match. Don't fucking matter,
What's
I
a
suppose.
fucking
But
match?
still.
Be prepared for a bloodbath. But no, so obviously you've got that, which was fantastic, and it's mad that he can go, completely high intensity match of, throwing people through fucking glass windows and stuff, all the way through to just like the crazy shit that he's done, like all the comedy angles. Like, there's nobody, like, legitimately looking back across all of wrestling. There's been stuff with The Rock that's made me laugh quite a bit. There's been one or two bits of Triple H and Austin. Kurt Angle has probably been the one to consistently make me laugh the most in pro wrestling. 100%, which is, again, insane. Thinking of, like, how can he have such charisma to kind of go into this kind of profession, from being a gold medal fucking wrestler to being the funniest pro wrestler of all time, is a crazy transition.
Yeah. Exactly. And that's the funny thing, like, some of the stuff he's done, and
insane amount of stuff he's done. He had there was so obviously we kind of brought it up a little bit, didn't we, last when we talked about Edge last week. He was involved with them in different little skits, fucking the 5-second pose or 10-second pose, whatever. He was involved with them for a bit, but like, him and Edge did some great stuff as well. I remember, Edge was holding up photos or something, and it had words on the back that was basically saying Angle sucks and this kind of stuff, and all that happened. Then he had Edge kind of doing the whole "you suck" thing, which got into his entrance music. He had all this kind of shit, all the way into the fucking hair versus hair stuff down the line as well. But he had all this, but there was also just the comedy elements with the likes of Stone Cold and stuff as well. Like, when he put that cowboy hat on, my days. so funny, and you can see everybody corpsing. There was one point, and I think it was the same episode. Sorry, it was like the same episode. I think it was. Again, Stone Cold and Kurt Angle trying to kiss. They're trying to make Vince feel better or something. I can't remember the exact storyline. It might be around the invasion angle. But they're trying to cheer Vince up, and Kurt just sat there and So first, like, Stone Cold's playing on a guitar, and then he gets Kurt Angle one. It's a tiny little fucking banjo, and he's like, playing it all cool. But then he gets the guitar from Stone Cold to play a proper song, and he starts singing Jimmy Cracks Corn, and I Don't Care, and he starts singing it, and you can just see Vince go, and he has to stand up and walk out of shot because he's laughing. And when do you ever make Vince McMahon? When do you ever make Vince break? That just goes to show how funny he is.
Yeah. Exactly. But it's like that, like, to be fair, Vince has been impeccably good at staying in character, to the point that you think, is he just an angry, bossy guy anyway? Probably. But he's always been really good at staying in his character, to be fair. So if you're breaking him into fits of laughter, you're doing something right there, aren't you,
and obviously, again, like the work he did with Austin. So we talk about all this kind of stuff, but obviously synonymous with Angle is the whole milk truck. So back in the Attitude Era days, you had obviously the beer truck angle with Stone Cold and Vince, and for it's just so fitting that because Kurt was you had obviously Austin was there just down in the beers and stuff, so it made so much sense for Kurt Angle to be like, well, I like milk, and it was just like for him to then do the same thing but with milk, it was just so funny. Like, I can't speak any higher of his comedic prowess. It was so funny.
I'm sure, I don't know if it was a deliberate connection or not, but like, they even alluded back to that milk thing a few times, because didn't he like have a drinking contest with Brock, but it was with milk as well?
Honestly, it wouldn't surprise me. It's
I could honestly, I think, because Brock, I think, was able to chug like a couple of gallons worth. Do you know what I mean? But it's like that classic sort of drinking game, but they were using milk. I always remember that on just a random episode of SmackDown. But they do kind of allude back to that a couple of times.
No, definitely. It was just so good. But I touched on it briefly. But I remember you talking about it last week as well. Just that whole kind of Edge rivalry.
Yeah, I mean, this whole thing, like, what always impresses me with the whole Edge rivalry, and obviously this is just the I suppose the ultimately where it led rather than the rivalry itself, but like, they managed to get over a stupid concept. Like, and as daft as it sounds, it's like that whole classic thing that you mentioned it a few times in the podcast, where you turn chicken shit into chicken salad. I think is the term you use. And this is one of them things where it's like, they've gone, And I'm sure the angle was deliberate to go, well, Kurt's losing his hair, so we need an excuse for him to. I don't know why they needed to have a storyline excuse for him to cut his hair off, but there you go. But, they ended up with this hair versus hair match, and the pair of them sold it like fuck, that I actually cared who won. And you honestly, for a second, believed that it might not have been Edge. Like, oh, wait, yeah, Edge is going to lose his hair. Like, that was ever going to happen, do you know what I mean? And I don't know why it impresses me so much, but the fact that they got over something that's so stupid and that they've tried to do again a couple of times and it's never really worked quite the same. I think it's a testament to both of them. But again, this all falls down to Kurt's comedy elements. And like, bear in mind, after this match, he done that whole daft thing where he had a clearly really bad wig and that the wrestling sort of helmet to keep it in place, and he did that for. It felt like months. It might have only been weeks, but the fact he kept doing that as well afterwards, he's just really selling the whole thing. Like, he weren't happy that he lost, and he's just trying to deny it ever happened. And again, falls back into that whole comedy element. His character work was phenomenal.
Oh yeah, 100%. He was so good. I remember just being like, he just denied it. He was like, no, what on about? This is my hair, just grew back and stuff. You know what I mean? Like the next day, it was so funny. But then another thing to call out again of like people he elevated or helped make and things like that is, you've got to think about Team Angle, because like they like again. So obviously it was the world's greatest tag team, wasn't it? It was it Shelton and Charlie Haas. So for them to come straight out of the gate because they were fucking good. They were good.
Do you know what's funny? Like, I don't know why, right? And we might as well talk about this now. I don't know why, but you always try and like. Part of me looks back on that and goes, "Ah, yeah, it wasn't a great run for them. That like didn't execute well. That." But then I'm like, that was the best thing either of them did. All due respect to them. Like, no offense to either of them, and they never ended up being like the biggest tag team in the world. So you like, I suppose on paper you could say, well, it didn't work. Do you know what I mean? But at the same time, I'm like, it did work, because when they were with Kurt, when they were doing that work, that was probably the best stuff they did. Like, no offense to Shelton now, and it's nice to see him back, and I was a fan, but like, I don't think he's had anywhere near the prominence or the fun or anything that he's had when he was in this whole world's greatest tag team angle. Both of them had typical WWE. They split up and had singles runs, and both of them didn't really go much further.
No, I was legit bought into these as a tag team, and I think it was another side of Kurt Angle to be like the leader of a stable, which was something he'd never really done before. Yeah. But it was like these two guys he brought in. It was like, okay, I've got these guys. We're Team Angle now. Gave them the rub in that sense to then have tag championships and stuff. And for a while, while they were together, they were like the dog's bollocks of tag teams. Like they.
Yeah, I feel like, and it might just be me because it's my perspective looking back on the past. Like, I seem to forget them a lot, but like I think they're underappreciated as a faction. Like when you talk about like good factions, like they don't really get a mention, but what they did really well. So it's a shame in some senses, really.
But they weren't the only young up and comer that Kurt worked with, because there was a certain guy that you might not be able to see who made his debut with Mr. Angle as well. So that.
Well, technically, two people, Carl. Let's not forget the phenomenal B Squared. Shit, yeah. Whatever happened to him?
Remember B Squared? But yeah, this was obviously the whole ruthless aggression era, wasn't it? With with Kurt, and him actually ushering in that era with John Cena, who was an unknown at that time. To have him come in and just get absolutely battered by this kid that we've never seen before, and obviously just managed to win it at the last second. Again, just speaks volumes to the work he does to put people over, and like who else could John Cena have come in and fought and put on that good of a showing with at that time? Like, no one else was going to do that for him, and for him to be able to do that against the likes of Kurt Angle, I'm sure Cena must be fucking over. I know that initial run never really worked out that well for him. He had to go through the whole rap thing, didn't he?
No, this is the thing. But I think that's what it needed, though, because he was very... there wasn't a lot to his character, was there? Like, they had the whole... And people allude back to it. And WrestleMania this year alluded back to the whole ruthless aggression thing. But it's like, there wasn't much to his character. He needed that work. But like you say, fair play to Kurt for putting
Mhm.
over what he was at the
No,
time. You
definitely.
know what I
And
mean?
it's funny that after they had that work, they did cross paths again, and something which
Oh
we
yes,
just
they
talk
did.
about all the time is just being so fucking funny.
Still one of my fucking highlights of my childhood wrestling viewing. To be fair,
Phenomenal.
and you can't beat it. I mean, Cena was like he was white hot at this point. People were loving the gimmick. It was really as much as like he became like a fucking dynasty, as it were, as I think CM Punk liked to put it. At this point, it was fresh, it was different. People were loving the whole rap thing. I think he was a heel, but he was one of them heels that a lot of
Hmm.
people liked at the time because he'd come out with his attitude and he do his cut his raps and all that. And then what do we get? We get one of the best fucking rap battles ever between him and Kurt, and it still holds up
I
now.
just,
It's fantastic, and the ref randomly beatboxing that was random
I
as fuck
just
as well.
like the guy is just an absolute legend. For him to just be there, take his cap, put it on sideways, do his little rap, but then like the way he's doing that, like I'd lose it still every time I watch that video where he finds his groove and he just starts dancing for a bit. Like I I
Yeah.
legitimately just like start like cry laughing whenever I see that. It's just so funny.
That's the amazing thing. Like no one could
No.
execute it better than that. It's just awesome. But it's things like that I know Cena was doing well, and he probably still would have done well. So I'm not giving all the credit to Kurt in all fairness, but like stuff like this, getting into feuds like this, and getting that sort of attention and that sort of push, and getting to do those back and forth, this is what made
Mm.
Cena in his early years. This is what helped propel him to where to be one of the biggest name in fucking wrestling. And you got the likes of Angle, who's always been like throughout his career the type of guy who'd put
Yeah,
people over, and he'd try his best to put people over. Like it's no surprise that Angle was one of the better or the best feud of Cena's early years. In
absolutely.
all
And I
fairness,
think in terms of him putting people over as well, you can't again and another one of the biggest names in the whole world of wrestling, Brock. So you have that match at WrestleMania 19.
Brock.
Um, like
Oh yeah, that's the one with the fabled shooting
it
star
is.
press,
So
isn't it?
obviously, so it did go a bit south at the end, but so obviously,
But it was a good match, and to be fair, that was a move that he pulled
yeah.
off so many times. Just
I mean,
unfortunate,
obviously,
really. But
Kurt also has a podcast now, so I recommend you go and check that out. He's obviously in his first or second week, I think. Obviously with Conrad Thompson, who does a lot of other
yeah,
podcasts.
that's it. Yeah, he's a newbie,
Yeah,
guys. Give him a
check him
listen.
out. You might have heard of him.
He's only got a couple of million
But
listeners already.
no, like he mentioned on that episode because it gets brought up talking about WrestleMania 19, and it was him that convinced Brock to do the shooting star press, and obviously he feels a bit bad about it now because it didn't. But um,
But again, he's done it so many times. You
well,
couldn't
that
have
was
known it
it,
wasn't
and
going to land.
he
There's
puts
no way
it
anyone could
he
have.
put it in quite a he articulated it quite well. I thought where either way you were getting a moment, so it could have been that he landed it perfectly. And it was like holy shit, Brock Lesnar just did a shooting star press and it was amazing. What an athlete! Or he fucks it up, which unfortunately it did go that way, and you still talk about it to this day. Like, remember that time? Oh yeah, that's the match where Brock Lesnar fucked up.
We do.
So you still
Yeah.
got your WrestleMania moments, but before all that happened, like, what a suplexy technical contest this was. Just two guys.
And because this is the funny thing, like Brock gets a really
Mm,
bad rep now for coming in and suplex, F5, that kind of thing, and it like, a handful of moves. This is a real showcase of
hmm
Brock as a wrestler. That I mean, he's one of them, and I'm sure that this is his approach now. Is that he's like, well, he gets big money and does a couple of matches, and he's not going
Yeah,
to hurt himself. I'm sure that's how he does it now, because who wouldn't do it that way, especially after you've wrestled for so long? But and UFC, which is bound to have took its toll as well. But if you want to see Brock like in his prime WWE wrestling days, this is the match to watch, or definitely one of them. But this for me is one of my
yeah.
favorite Brock
Oh,
matches.
100%.
And it's a bit of an
Well,
unfortunate
that's it.
finish,
And I
but
think the thing that not a lot of people know about this match is after he does that shooting star press, obviously he's concussed to fuck because he just landed on his own head. All 300 pounds of him, he's just
yeah,
landed on his own head. He doesn't even know where he is. So at this point, Kurt's like talking to him, saying like, "Do you know where you are?" And effectively, Kurt has to take this match home himself. He has to be like, and don't
yeah,
forget, this is a point where Kurt Angle's neck is fucked. It's about to get fused to his spine. He's already broken his neck. he's been wrestling for all these years. He's in a tremendous amount of pain, and this was probably, I'm not sure. I can't actually remember whether this was his last match or he was certainly towards the end of his tenure with WWE for the first.
Exactly, and this is like the closing minutes of
Yeah,
quite a
and
long
like
match as
he
well.
has to basically, get up with like no neck himself, put himself in the F5, take the F5, take the loss, get Brock to win the belt, and then remind him he's got to go and like hug him at the end and raise his hand and to put him over and stuff. And Brock doesn't know where he is, and it's crazy because there's been footage released since after this match, and they're trying to send Brock to the hospital, and he's you want to see it. He's like a fucking wild animal. He's grunting. He's like pushing people, knocking shit over because he doesn't know where he is. He doesn't know what's happening. All he knows is he doesn't want to get in an ambulance. So
Yeah, he's confused, and people are like trying to force him
insane,
somewhere.
honestly, absolutely.
Yeah,
So for
crazy
Angle to be
stuff,
able
man.
to just carry that and stuff as well is just
Yeah, I like the way you put it. It's like put himself in the F, like he
mhm.
F5'd himself, using Brock as a
Well, that's
device. But
it
yeah,
is insane, and unfortunately, I don't know what whether you watched much of this and stuff, but not long after this, he did leave WWE at the time. I know he had a couple of personal battles and demons and things like that, and he ended up finding a home in TNA for a bit. And I didn't really, unfortunately, I wasn't really watching much TNA at that time. I've since seen.
yeah.
Go on.
See, I was really a TNA guy, but I'm given to understand Angle came along around the time that they were just throwing as many sort of previous big names at the company as they could. So I think this was around the time Bischoff and Hogan and that were heavily
Mm.
involved in TNA, and various bits like that. And I know he was really well liked. And he did a lot of good work there, but again, it's not something I could talk about too much either. But I also, as you say, this was around the time he was probably struggling with a few
Yeah,
personal
definitely.
issues as
But I
well.
think like I've seen stuff since like of his time in TNA, and he looks like he's done some fantastic stuff there as well. He looked like a fucking crazy bastard. He was doing moonsaults off things. There's one thing where he just did a fucking running cannonball jump off the stage at one point, and it was just like, holy shit! You think he did a moonsault off a cage? He's done like load of crazy shit while he was there. I think I'm not sure if he was in the main event
Yeah.
Mafia, maybe, but yeah, he certainly had a successful TNA run. Um,
Yeah, I dare say he was one of the highlights in a struggling
he
TNA as
must have
well.
been probably
In all
one of the only
fairness,
highlights, but luckily he did manage to come back to the WWE not too long ago. Found his
found
way
his way
back, and
home.
obviously that debut match of Ronda Rousey. I remember us watching it live together and just thinking,
Yeah, and again, I think
mhm.
we've credited this. I can't remember how we ended up talking about it, but we've credited like obviously Rousey was new to wrestling. A hell of an athlete, but new to wrestling. And Steph isn't really a wrestler, so this match was sort of carried on the expertise and experience of the likes of
Oh,
Kurt and Triple
100%.
H. And I know we've talked about that in a previous podcast, but it was a lot better match than it probably deserved to be. In
Yeah,
all fairness,
I thought it was fantastic. I thought it was a great showing for Rousey, and I think the likes of Kurt and Triple H and Steph allowed Rousey to shine at the right times in the right ways. And Kurt Angle, again, very selfless as has been the whole theme throughout all of this segment, is just showcasing another future star. And yeah, he was in the match to be the name and to make up the whole mixed tag team match, but he didn't overshadow it, even though it was his return as well. It was all about Rousey. He did everything he could to make it about Rousey. And yeah, I just thought
yeah.
again, just another classic example, and the fact that he could kind of come home, as we've said, and finish things.
But that's what it is. That's how it feels. Like
Hmm.
he came home to
Yeah.
WWE. That's how it feels. And it was good. I honestly, and I don't know what it is, but something about his last run in WWE just felt a bit rushed towards the end
Yeah.
there, like, which is a real shame. But for the length of time we got him, and for the whole GM thing that he stuck around for, so he was an on-screen personality rather than a wrestler, and that, awesome. I was made up with that. But yeah, I don't know. It just felt like maybe just because I wanted more, because it was
Mm.
cool to see him back, but it just felt
No,
a
I
little
agree
bit
with
rushed to me.
that. I feel like he was the victim of some really poor booking. Obviously, he had the whole Jason Jordan storyline, and that didn't really go anywhere.
Yeah, like even that, like that. Because did Jason go off on
Yeah,
injury? Because he's still out
he
now,
was
isn't he? But
injured.
did he
Yeah.
go off on injury or something? Because the story, as daft as it was, never even got
No,
to
so we had
fruition.
that, and obviously his final retirement match was against Baron Corbin, of all people, in a losing effort. So it didn't really do anything for Corbin, unfortunately. But that's
Yeah,
not Angle's fault.
it's a shame, but no, it is a real shame that for someone who spent his career being really excelling, even at putting people over, it's a shame that like he didn't get to do that, do it like because like you say, he didn't do a lot for
No,
Corbin, which he should have, because that's how he wanted to do it. He wanted to put over a younger talent on his
yeah,
way out the door, and don't get me wrong, I've been commending Corbin the last few weeks as much as I've not been a fan of the character, and we've mentioned in the past about X-Pac heat rather than heat, but like Corbin is a professional. Do you know what I mean? He's working his ass off every week, and I think he is going to be a mainstay. I dare say we're going to get to a point down the line, Carl, where you and I are both going to be commending him. Because the last few weeks I've seen him and he's trying to sort of work with Dominic in again what is kind of a rubbish storyline. You know, he deserved the push. It just sadly it didn't do anything for him, like you say,
no,
especially at that
definitely.
point,
I mean,
which is a
luckily
shame.
we did get to see Kurt go into the Hall of Fame. A fantastic Hall of Fame speech and stuff it was as well. I think one of the things that shone from his Hall of Fame speech was when he just said, like, don't be afraid to take a chance and, you know, make yourself look silly and, you know, take a risk and do some crazy stuff. And, you know, he's the prime example of showing that you can do that. And, you know, look, we've got a whole episode dedicated to him,
See,
of how fondly we remember him.
that is of it's that comment. Don't be
Yeah,
afraid to look silly, because that's exactly he was never afraid. Like, let's face it, that rap battle could have made him look really silly. Like he could have just done the rap battle and got his ass out of there as well. But you know, he put a dance in there as well because he was just in the moment and he weren't afraid to look silly. Like most other people in his shoes, if I was in his shoes, I'd have done my lines and got
yeah,
out of there. Do you know what I mean? He sold the fuck out of that because he wasn't afraid to be a little bit
absolutely.
silly and do something different. You know what I mean? And I think that is a totally amazing point that he makes to the younger talent. Like, don't worry about it. Just give your all to whatever
Well,
angle
that's
you're
it.
giving, I
Even the Kurt
suppose.
Angle.
Even
And then
Kurt
obviously
Angle.
he finished that Hall of Fame speech with, you know, his 2 bottles of milk, Stone Cold style. Absolutely swelled himself in only the best way you could. So yeah, I just think I'm absolutely baffled and shocked at the fact that they've released him.
Yeah,
I was
it's
disgusted when
insane.
I found that out. And fine, he may not have been in an
Yeah,
on-screen role or anything like that, but you know the amount of, as a trainer, as you know, some capacity to give back to this business that he's so fucking brilliant at.
I think that's the thing. Like, there's so many ways they could have tried to use that man's talent because, like, he's been in the business for that long. Like you say, trainer, booker, even on a creative side of things, I reckon he could have
Absolutely,
added
he
some
could have.
value.
He still could have added
But
value as an on-screen
yeah,
personality if they hadn't have fucked it up. Because
he could. I'd definitely like. Let's be honest. I would sooner him be in the Adam
oh
Pearce role.
my,
All
yeah,
due respect.
absolutely, I would, 100%, 100%.
If they just said to him, "You're going to be the guy who does both shows," who basically, when they need someone to dispute over a match or whatever, you're the guy, and he became that Adam Pearce character. Let's face it, it works for Regal. Regal is that exact
Yeah,
character for NXT. I have no issue with that. He's not overpowering on the show because it's William Regal. He doesn't show up all the time. He's there when he's needed, and it's good to see him
yeah,
when you see him. That's what they could have done with Kurt. That could have been the perfect
yeah,
situation.
absolutely. But yeah, unfortunately, he's no longer there anymore. But fortunate news for us is that hopefully, all being well and good, we're looking forward to meeting Kurt in May at For the Love of Wrestling 2,
Yeah,
the wrestling convention in Liverpool. You know, it looks less and less likely as the days go on and we are in a lockdown, but holding out hope that we will get to meet this Olympic hero. We obviously,
yeah. With any luck, fingers crossed, man. Fingers crossed. At some point, we have to meet him because I've got me Kurt Angle velour tracksuit there. You know, same one that he wore in the rap battle. And I'll
oh
be
yeah,
turning up in that.
definitely. But no, we were lucky enough to speak with him as well not too long ago. Obviously, he started his own podcast now. We wanted to see what his availability was
Yeah.
of obviously coming on this show and stuff. And he did say he was inundated with shitload of podcast
Well, as you can
requests.
imagine, you know, like he is probably one of the most popular wrestlers for any wrestling fan. And yeah, I can totally understand him being inundated. That just makes a lot of sense because who
Well,
wouldn't want a
exactly.
bit
He's
of
just a
Kurt?
sexy Kurt, isn't he? But who knows? We will reach back out in the around June time, and who knows? Maybe we will one day get this absolute legend on the show. But what a career!
And let's face it, because we want him on the show so we can tell him how much we think he's awesome. So like,
Well,
who
exactly.
wouldn't want to hear
Who
that?
wouldn't want to hear that? I mean, I'm going to send him this episode after this, and after he watches it, I'm sure he'll be on next
Of
week's
course.
show. But no, what a career! What a
Definitely.
legend! Just he's our Valentine this Valentine's Day because we love the guy and just think he's fantastic. And I think he's
Damn
he's
right.
like an unsung hero as well for me in this business.
He really
and
is.
he's still my dream match, and it's got to be up there. I'm undecided yet whether I'm going to stick with the triple threat just for the point of this. Is going to be Kurt Angle, Bret Hart, Mr. Perfect, triple threat match. That would be my wet dream of wrestling, right there. So
Another segment, Carl's wet dreams of wrestling.
yep. So there we go.
But no, that would be imagine being able to do that kind
yeah.
of match.
Ooh, ooh.
The trouble with dream bookings, man, you get to think
I
about
know,
those possibilities.
if only. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this little segment. We've got a couple of other exciting segments coming up in the next weeks and months. But yeah, we wanted to just shine a bit of spotlight and show a bit of love for Kurt Angle on this week in our Valentine's special. So, Kurt,
Because
raise
Kurt
your
is a legend. It's true.
Raise your glass
It's
of milk.
damn
I've only
true.
got water, but we'll raise it to Kurt.
It's a Kurt.
And so that was it. That was the segment. And we will be back after this thing.
You're watching or listening
to A to the K.
The A to the K.
A2theK.
A to the K.
A to the K.
A to the K.
These guys are awesome. Check it out.
Check it out. Change your life. You'll be thanking me later.